Hello, friends, and welcome to the Real Secrets of Magic podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and I'm here today with International Stand-Up Paddleboarding Man of the Year, Speaker Slam Inspirational Speaking Contest winner, and the author of Crash and Rise, Diaries of an Unbalanced Paddleboarder, Mike Shoreman, whose rise has just been meteoric lately. Mike, thanks so much for being on the program with me.
No, great to see you. Thanks for having me on, Brandon.
It's such a pleasure. And we've been Facebook friends for a little while now, having some similar circles as speakers. But for everybody listening and watching, this is actually the first time we've been able to connect. So I'm especially excited about this episode and being able to dive in to the magic that you're making. Now, for those who are new to the show or not familiar, we are not here to talk about magic tricks. The Real Secrets of Magic is all about learning what people are doing to make magic beyond the illusions, beyond sleight of hand and conjuring and all of those things. And I think magic is definitely real. And from what I've seen, Mike, you've been making magic all over the place. Would you mind sharing a little bit? What kind of magic are you making and have you made in the last little while?
Right. So I think, I'll just touch briefly on my story, because you kind of have to know that to realize. So I used to be a professional paddleboarding coach with Paddle Canada, which is the governing organization here in Canada of paddleboarding. And I used to teach in front of the Toronto skyline. Beautiful. Which was one of the greatest periods of my life. It was my dream job. And, I think my favorite part of that job was the experience and creating something that people loved. And that was paddleboarding at sunset in front of the Toronto skyline with the planes going over. It was like the big show.
Beautiful. And
then I got really sick really fast, and my chicken pox reactivated. So chicken pox from when we're children reactivated as shingles, and mine particularly attacked my facial nerve and my ear. So when that happened, my face collapsed on the right side. There were speech problems, hearing problems, vision problems, and I lost my sense of balance. So I went from being this very athletic, paddleboarder to not being able to walk. And the doctor said that I would never paddleboard ever again. And I went through a huge depression. I had to learn how to walk again. And then eventually I did. I took a chance invitation, and I got back on a paddleboard when they said I couldn't. And that first day I sat down for 3 minutes, and that 3 minutes kind of gave me the confidence to sit down again for 5 minutes. And I was battling vertigo and dizziness, and then that 5 minutes led to 7 minutes, and then I stood up for the first time.
Wow.
And it's just kind of gone, the progression of that. And then I entered a speaking competition called Speaker Slam. And I'd given one speech before. It was a valedictorian speech in college, and it was terrible. I'll be the first person to say that it was bad. And I applied to do this thing called Speaker Slam, which is Canada's largest inspirational speaking competition. And they said, yes, we want you. And it was great that they wanted me, because I really needed a win at that point. Like I needed some good things happening. So I went into that thinking, okay, well, there's 300 people in this room, and if I can uplift 3, then I'll consider that a win. That'll be a good success. Mm-hmm. And I won. And it was one of the most healing, cathartic releases that I've ever had.
Hmm.
You know, getting up and sharing my story and tying in, you know, a universal message to it and making it applicable for people who were facing any adversity, not just mine, but going through whatever they were struggling.
Mhm.
And then that speech went viral on several platforms. You know, Power Positivity put it up. Ashton Kutcher put it up on his platform, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And you know, it got millions of views. But the more important part of that was like that was amazing. But the really special thing about that was that it connected those people to me, those viewers on those platforms to me. And I was getting comments of, oh my gosh, I've just been through, you know, I've got multiple sclerosis, or I've got Parkinson's, or my dad's got cancer, and this is what we're dealing with. And that speech has really done that. And then the paddleboarding community really took notice. And I woke up one day and there was this picture of this woman from Australia, and she'd gathered her paddleboarding club and they'd taken a picture. My speech was called Paddles Up. And it was something I used to do with my clients at the end of our lessons. I tell them to raise their paddles up, and I take beautiful pictures of them in front of the skyline.
Cool.
And it was a moment where they felt comfortable and confident in their own abilities to do so.
Mm.
And I woke up this one morning shortly after the speech went viral, and there was this picture of this woman in Australia with 10 others, and they'd all raised their paddles, and they hashtag Paddles Up from Australia.
Mm.
And then somebody else on my feed saw that, and they did it from Boston, and they tagged it to my wall. And then the next thing I knew, it went to England, and it went to France, and it went to Italy, and it went all over the world.
Wow.
And it just became this movement of standing up for others who are struggling, and mental health, and it just became this really beautiful thing. And here we are just over a year later, and the book was just, I wrote a book on the whole experience and what has happened. And it's a pretty magical thing.
There's so much magic. I've got goosebumps because I remember having seen the Paddles Up photos, but I was under the impression that was already a thing in the paddleboarding community. I didn't realize that it was initiated in response to your speech, which, by the way, for listeners, you should definitely check out. You can find it on YouTube, on Facebook. Paddles Up is the title of the speech. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, so the title's called I Said Yes, but the tagline is Paddles Up. Like people know it as the Paddles Up speech, but it was called I Said Yes, and it's about saying yes to yourself when you don't think you can.
It's fantastic. It's short and brief and powerful. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet or heard it yet. I wanted to comment briefly on two things I noticed here. You mentioned, you know, getting back on the paddleboard in the beginning was really just incremental. It started with 3 minutes, that shifted to 5 and 7. And then your desire for a win, your need for a win, you know, the standard was incremental. It was 1% of the audience. If I can inspire, uplift 3 out of 300 people, that'll be a win. And I wonder what that thinking has done for you in terms of building this momentum, because I think a lot of people set, you know, they would say 1% is maybe too low for a win, or they might be striving for 50 or whatever it is. That the bar we set is often really high, and we tend to set ourselves up for failure that way sometimes. I wonder if you could talk a bit about these incremental shifts.
So if you increase your percentages by 1% every day in whatever you're doing, whether it's, you know, getting more sleep, being more productive, anything, that's 365% increase every year. That's crazy. So, you know, increasing 1%, although it might sound like for some that you're aiming too low, well, that's just one experience, and that experience, you're going to take whatever you take from that experience, and you're going to move on to your next experience, and then you're going to apply the same. You're gonna keep going. So
simple, but I think often things seem so simple they don't seem practical, or they seem like they're, you know, over exaggerated. And certainly, I don't know if you knew, I had a chance to write a book a few years ago with a friend, and the idea of writing a book is daunting. It's a really, you know, there's lots of steps, and there are so many hidden steps that you don't think about until you're in them, as you can probably relate. And the only way to get through the steps is to take the little incremental, you know, 1% all the way through the process until you reach the end, which is obvious. But again, if you're hoping for more in one shot, you might just quit because you feel like, well, I couldn't do it, right?
I lost my business, I lost my independence, I lost my social life all at the same time. So I was in a really dark place, and I talk about it in the book quite a bit. But coming back from that, I think that because I had a coaching background, I understood what, like, maybe not at the forefront, like maybe it wasn't top of mind, and it wasn't top of mind while I was going through my recovery. I'm still in recovery, like not every day is good. But having a coaching background and understanding that, you don't become, like, my first time paddleboarding, I was terrible. I'll be the first person. Like, I took a lesson for 60 minutes and I was in the water for 40. And and I know that, it's very, very rare that somebody's going to come up and hit a grand slam home run without absolutely no practice, no training, no nothing behind them. So it's just these little wins, and each little win builds the confidence and the momentum that leads you to your next one.
That's fantastic. Speaking of mental health, because certainly that to have lost all those things would be devastating for anybody, especially to have lost them in sort of a blink. Can you speak a little bit about when you find yourself in the darkness? You know, how do you motivate, or what's the first step that can get momentum back in your favor?
Right. So don't listen to Florence and the Machine in the dark. It's really not a good on repeat. It's not a good thing. I don't recommend it.
Fair.
No, I think especially right now, we've had a hard year this past year, and a lot of people are struggling. And we're going into the new year, and although we're very excited that it's 2021 and 2020 is behind us, the reality of it is 2021 is going to be pretty rough. And for people who are really struggling to kind of step out of that, I would say, you know, journaling gratitude is an amazing thing. Not, you know, taking into an account, and I didn't do this. I do this now, but I didn't do this before I sought mental health treatment.
Okay.
But writing down all the things that we are grateful for today and making note of that. And I think that it's a completely different thing when you just say it out loud. When you write it down, you know, that's taking an action. And smiling. There's a power in smiling that I think, so I smile and I laugh a lot. I've got a crooked smile because of the facial paralysis, but I, you know, smiling leads to us being happier. There's science behind it. And so even if I'm not particularly, you know, laughing at something, or like I'll just sit there and I'll type and I'll just like have a goofy grin on my face, because I know that that's going to mentally make me feel better.
Right.
I also focus on sleep, getting a lot of sleep right now, trying to eat as well as I can, drinking a lot of water, and being outside. Being outside's huge.
That's great. Yeah, that's I again, and it sort of creeps up a bit, but that writing down what you're grateful for is different than saying, because it's one more step, it's one more commitment, a little one, but it's a sign to yourself that, you know, you're taking a step, I think, and there's a tremendous value in that. At least I've experienced that as well. Oh man, Mike, I have so many things so many directions I want to go now. Can we talk a bit about your book? So, I mean, you did the talk that blew up. Then you've got this movement happening around the world in support of yourself and of others who are experiencing struggle. You write a book, and the book, as I understand, is also blowing up. It's getting, you said earlier you were in the International Book Fair in Miami. Did I call that right?
Yeah. We launched at the Miami International Book Fair. It's the largest book fair in North America.
Incredible. Top reviews on Amazon. So what is the hope, or maybe what's your next vision or ambition with this movement, with the book and your general direction? Where are you going, if you can share?
So you know, just sell my rights to my story and have it turn into a movie. No, I'm kidding.
That's awesome.
But maybe, who knows? Who knows? Like, we don't know. We never know.
Right.
Like, we don't. That could happen. You never know. I didn't anticipate, like, you know, anybody who knew me probably wouldn't have said that I did the speech. And you know, I bet, you know, people who knew me before probably thought, you know, he won't write a book. So you never know. But no, this year, so my personal goal for this year is this August, I am going to be the first paddleboarder to paddleboard from the USA to Canada. So I am partnering with jack.org, which is a mental health organization, and they provide programs and services to Canadian youth mental health across Canada. Wow. And I got involved with them just after the speech came out, and I've had 2 annual events since that's happened, raising awareness and funds for them. So we are actually launching The Crossing. It's called The Crossing.
Cool.
And it's being presented by Red Bull Canada. and we're launching it on Bell Let's Talk Week, Bell Let's Talk Day week. So right now I'm very focused on book stuff and all of that. And just kind of focused on speaking engagements this year, book, and then just training for that, because that is going to take me, I think it's going to take about 48 consecutive hours to go from Rochester to Toronto.
Crossing Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
My goodness. On a paddleboard.
Yeah, so I'll be the first person to do that crossing, and I'll be the first person with mobility problems to do it. So I'll be doing it sitting down. So right now it's hard to train with a neurological condition because you can't move. Like when I move my head from side to side, I get dizzy. So paddleboarding's tough for me. And you're like, well, how do you train? Like I'm even questioning, how do I train for this? So right now I'm walking like an hour every day outside. Like I go for a walk every day, and then I do half an hour physical training inside, like a workout. And I go paddleboarding twice a week. And then next month I'll up it to 2 hours of walking. And then I'll up it to 3 hours of walking every day. So I'll get up at 5 and walk, go out walking until 8 and just build it up. And then by the summer, hopefully I'm ready. We'll see.
The question that pops to my mind is can anybody ever be ready for that? I think people train for marathons and they never train the full distance. They just train, some good chunk of mileage, but when you get to the real deal, like, okay, I'm in. You'll sleep on a paddleboard? Is that the
because it's going to take so long. I will have to sleep out there at some point. I'm going to have 2 different boats, security boats, like one behind me and one ahead, and they're also going to be there for like safety team and also documenting it, like filming it.
Right.
But I think most people when they cross, like they don't get into a boat. So if I have a sleep, like I'll tether it to a boat and I'll just have a little nap on the paddleboard if I need to, and I will. But I've been in talks with Canadian Border Services, and the Toronto Marine Police Unit has agreed to come out and get me 20 kilometers out from Toronto and bring me in safely. So it'll be a pretty big thing, and hopefully it raises a lot of money for mental health in Canada this year.
What a fantastic event and challenge, and kudos for the willingness to attempt it at least, and to consider it. And the cause is so much bigger. Mike, the show is called The Real Secrets of Magic, and we've sort of talked about a lot of things, a lot of magic you're making, and it's just things are going in all sorts of directions for you. It feels like I am interested in the practices that you keep that maybe you feel have contributed to your success, but other people might not see them as being so obviously connected. So we've talked a little bit about it, keeping a gratitude practice, or being outdoors, or sleeping well. I wonder, is there like a hidden secret practice that you sustain that you would say has really contributed to where you are now?
So there's this poster that I see, and it's I think most entrepreneurs have seen it, and it's an iceberg, and it's we see the tip of it, but the main component of the iceberg is actually underwater. And any entrepreneur will know that you see the success on top and it's just small, but you don't see the foundation of everything underneath. And so I was talking with a friend of mine, Kevin, a couple weeks ago, and he said, people don't realize how relentless you are. And I said, what do you mean? And he said it's unbelievable, because he knows, he sees it, but I don't share it with everybody. But I've leveraged that speaker slam into everything else. And I've been very fortunate to get a lot of media coverage out of it, which has kind of propelled everything, support and the momentum that has built to it all. But no, I be relentless. If you want to have a journalist cover your story, contact 300 journalists. There are a million out there. And you might have to contact 300 to get one to say yes. But when one says yes, then it becomes kind of a domino effect. So be relentless in your pursuit of your own success.
Brilliant. I love it. Thanks, Mike. I think it's things people know. I don't think this is new, but also people don't do. I love the analogy of the iceberg. I'm a fan of saying, if you trust the process, we're in a product focused world. We only ever see the stuff that's made it. We don't see the stuff that didn't, and we don't get to know how much stuff didn't before something did. So keeping that in mind, what a great bit of advice for anybody who's trying to make some magic of their own.
No, have you seen The Queen's Gambit on Netflix?
No, not yet.
It's the new chess series.
Okay.
It's really good. But I just saw something the other day that the guy who wrote it, he pitched that something like 80 times before it was picked up by Netflix. And I feel like he's my spirit animal. Just be relentless. Don't give up. Ask if you don't know somebody. I don't know anybody at Red Bull Canada, but I know somebody who does. So I asked them to put me in touch, and they believed in what I believe. So they made it happen. And I think we don't ask. We're afraid that people will say no, but people want to help. People want to feel good about themselves and know that they did some good. So I think we just need to ask more often and be confident in our own abilities that we can accomplish a lot.
Poignant. Great advice, Mike. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but thank you so much for agreeing to donate some time today. I think you've given us a lot to think about. There's so much value in your words and your experiences. And I know I, for one, can't wait to see how the crossing goes in August next year. And maybe we'll have to have another conversation post-crossing about the new wisdom gained on that experience.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. It was really nice catching up, and just great to finally connect with you, Brandon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you for tuning into the program today. I hope you got as much value out of that conversation as I did, and have a few different tidbits to help you make magic in your own lives. For more on how to create new possibilities, be sure to follow me on Instagram @BrandonLoveMagic, and tune in next week where we'll share more of the real secrets of magic.